Hello and welcome everyone, it is me, the Ball, also supported is back for you with another video, and finally something that isn't SP Turbo. This is going to be like a short discussion type video on Clockwork Knight, because I was wrong. I was not familiar with this man's game. Did a lot more testing with this card in, the run-up to Supreme Darkness the last couple weeks, and yeah, I was a bit hard on this guy in my initial assessment, and yeah, this is probably going to be just a couple minutes of me just rambling about the cards, getting into a couple replays later down the line, where I mainly just want to showcase like one or two interactions with the cards that do, I think, are kind of nice, and also just a bit of the combo potential that you have. Like, we're going to look at that. But first of all, let's talk about the man of the hour. Clockwork Knight is a Link 1 monster that I hope the German translators of this game do not mess up. It takes a non-link machine monster with 1000 or less original attack, and if it's link summoned, you can send a face-up continuous spell you control to the graveyard, and then you can add a copy of Clockwork Knight from your deck to hand. That is the continuous spell some of you may already be familiar with, because this is something that people have been running in Morphtronics already, as a sort of reinforcement of the army of something like Foolish Burial Goods. But yeah, then the second effect of this Link 1 reads that you can target a machine monster with 1000 or less attack in your grave. You tribute another machine monster, and if you do, you special summon the target in defense position. You can only use each effect of Clockwork Knight once per turn. Now, what does this specifically do in Morphtronics? Like, initially I was like, okay, yeah, you summon a guy back in defense, so you don't get like many of the good effects. I did end up triggering a remote in defense position in testing, and it, I feel like, won me the game. You can also very easily just recur like a Gadget Gamer for a level 3 non-tuner body, which oftentimes does line up fairly nicely, since you're, juggling around a good couple of just level 1 tuners in, Telephone and Smartphone. And those with a Gadget Gamer do make Earphone, and with another level 1 on the board, you can easily make an Aturia Beast, which is, of course, incredibly potent as an end board piece. So the extension part does come up a whole lot more than I thought initially. And also has just like a lot more utility by itself. Now to the, I guess, more obvious part. The on-link summon, sending a continuous spell you control to the graveyard, adding a Clockwork Knight from deck to hand. This I feel like definitely still has like a lot more synergy in decks that do run like a native continuous spell. I think like a Cyber Dragon with, Cyber Dark Realm, or something like Earth Machine with a heavy forward for the Infinitrack portion. But realistically, even just cycling Clockwork Knight for Clockwork Knight is pretty fucking good. Not only does this mean that you get a Clockwork Knight into the graveyard, and also immediately get a discard for said Clockwork Knight, so you're not really losing card advantage in that interaction. But you also get to turn the Clockwork Knight you just added to your hand by, sending it for the one engraved, because you can banish Clockwork Knight from the graveyard, discard a card, and then add any Earth Machine monster from deck to hand. Which is pretty good. Like, it's just a very, very generic rotor for like your entire archetype, essentially. Minus like 6 or 7-ish exceptions, I think. So yeah, there's also a good couple of, non-archetypal targets that I think we are going to be talking about in a moment here. But even that as an interaction is pretty freaking good, because if you cycle for, the Clockwork Knights, you also still have one in the graveyard, meaning on the follow-up you can easily just discard another card, grab like, a Telephone you maybe have left in deck, and from there try and like maybe rebound or rebuild into a game where your board might have gotten broken, which is a very good thing. I do quite like that interaction a lot. It has led to me kind of almost going up to 3 Clockwork Knights in testing. But I feel like that's a bit too much, and I do like where the list is at the moment. In general, something you can grab off of this guy, of the Clockwork Knight specifically, that is also very handy for the deck is the King, Therion King Regulus. You can easily, set up the summoning condition for this guy, because getting a machine into the grave is even easier nowadays. And from there on out, having just like an Omni Negate is very, very, very powerful. Just something good that allows you to maybe proof yourself against hand traps. In, you know, situations where you are going to get hand trapped a lot, which is, I think, the main advantage of Clockwork Knight overall, or has been something that I did notice in testing. This card does help you quite often to just force your way through interaction a lot easier, which is very nice. Does make the deck a lot less vulnerable on the normal summon. I'm going to be specific about like an interaction in like one of the first replays that I'm going to showcase with this card. Mainly because I think it does go very nicely, even if it's like a very, very niche interaction, probably, all things considered. But something that is very nice. Just, you know, another way to get guys off the board, specifically also a gadget gamer. And then turning this card live, Morphtronic Converter, because this card does, after all, only needs to target a machine monster on the field to apply one of its effects, and mainly just getting to, you know, cycle like an impermed gadget gamer for a Clockwork Knight and then converting the Clockwork Knight away into a Southbound from the deck is pretty nice. But I think with that being said, I think we're going to look at a couple replays, even if I will have to switch softwares for that for a moment. After successfully finally silencing Dueling Nexus, this is mainly just here. As you can tell, my opponent's hand is not particularly great. Just here to showcase, you know, the extension possibilities through hand traps off of this card. As you're seeing here, my normal summon is a Southbound. That gets interrupted, which means I can easily turn this into Clockwork Knight. Since I have a Converter in hand, I can now immediately grab a Telephone out of the deck and get that Southbound back. Usually, if, you know, this was a gadget gamer, you'd be going for a Southbound because it's independently then the best starter in your deck, to like try and dig for, you know, more pieces of your like line. Trying to, you know, find like a Telephone to like get, you know, recurring Southbounds and triggering that multiple times a turn. In, you know, a general sense. This time I get here massively rewarded by the fact that I do hit a Telephone and another Telephone afterwards. Going to like quickly speed this up because this is going to probably be a very long line. You see me going for the Clockwork Knight here because I mainly like, kind of wanted to wait out a bit. I think you can just commit the Clockwork Knight a lot earlier here for the Therion King Regulus, and I do put this smartphone on the board here as well for a Naturia Beast. Take the second smartphone, put that on the board in, you know, sealed only fashion to enable that famous SP on the end board. But in this case, I decide I want to use the Regulus as a body, which is something you can also do. This is still a list that runs Silhouette Rabbit. I did end up cutting Silhouette Rabbit in testing. This live extreme interaction was very funny against a Glad Beast player, by the way, in testing. And yeah, Naturia Beast, not Naturia Beast things. But yeah, I feel like this is overall a situation where the card is already good by some baseline characteristics. I think Morphtronic Earphone could have no text and be a perfectly playable card in this deck. And I think Clockwork Knight is in a similar situation, but both have text on them, which makes them even better in the deck. Mainly, you know, being the recurable equip part of Earphone, or, you know, just cycling for Clockwork Knights, or even possibly the extension, which we are going to see in the next replay out of Clockwork Knight. Well, for this next one, turn on, I guess, the Wombo Combo music, because this poor Blue Eyes player has decided to not open any hand traps into, like, everything and then some, and a Fenrir. We're going to go for like a very normal gadget gamer line here. Since I have a Southbound in hand, I can grab, I think I started with Cellphone, Telephone, I want to say. Smartphone, Telephone. So I grab Southbound here, discard out off the gadget hauler, put that on the board afterwards off of the Telephone that I did summon off of this gadget gamer. Making a Portal Dragon because I still have a tuner in rotation, going for Clockwork Knight, cycling through my Clockwork Knight here. Triggering that immediately for a Therion King Regulus, which I have yet to put on the board. But I think that might not be far from us at the moment. Going into an Excelsior Crusader's Dragon here off of Telephone and Portal Dragon. Cycling with the Clockwork Knight here through the gadget gamer, making an Earphone, going Telephone for Telephone once again. making an Author with the Clockwork Knight and Leftover Telephone, and then, you know, just doing the whole song and dance again, going for a Braver Dragon here. Telephone will once again recur a guy, in this case Cellphone. I could have easily just taken Telephone, I feel like, here. But I did have enough extension in my back pocket to make it all work. Putting the smartphone on the board here. I think I was hoping for like a remote to potentially ensure that I have like another follow-up play. And ending on quite the impressive setup. I think this guy is a bit stumped by what is currently afoot. Goes for, you know, the Lordly Load, which I don't think Lordly Load is like putting on a whole lot of pressure here, and I think I can still, you know, remove that off of like an SP Little Knight later down on the turn. Get a Champ with a Ghost Ogre on the PT Braver activation, which, you know, my opponent immediately takes. I remove 2 cards off of Fenrir and the SP Summon here. And once my opponent goes for that Sage of Eyes of Blue, I can SP out the Link 1. And my opponent is left with a singular card into an Omni Negate, which doesn't turn out great, and is even less great when that one singular card is a Flammable Guard. But yeah, with all that being said, I think we're going to go back to Edo Pro and kind of talk about like some final thoughts and maybe, you know, a couple ideas for you guys. To maybe include this guy in your deck, if you aren't already, because you might have been faster than me with that. Well, what is there to say that hasn't been already said and done? I guess I'm sorry, Clockwork Knight. I really wasn't familiar with your game. Going to be the underlying theme of this whole video, honestly. Very good card. I did undervalue this quite a bit. Just the extension possibilities off of like Hard Drawing Converter, which does kind of play into my hand a bit, because I've been like a very, very staunch advocate of 3 Converter for a while now. Even if the more common ratio from what I've been seeing is 2 copies at most. Because it does help a ton into hand traps. If you're, you know, playing like any sort of modern format, you are going to get hand trapped. And I think that is a point where Clockwork Knight does shine a lot. In a lot of situations, I was able to make a Clockwork Knight, was able to extend past like a hand trap on my normal summon, and then keep going. And in some cases, even keep going further, because you can very easily grab a Therion King Regulus, which does trade for another hand trap out of your opponent's hand. There have been games where, like, you know, normal gets ashed, I make a Clockwork Knight, potentially get to, you know, cycle for the Cont Spell, or, you know, have the Cont Spell already engraved, because oftentimes I think when you already have combo, you can just kind of dump it and then wait on it a bit, see what responses your opponent has, and then make like your decision based on that. Try and extend, see if your opponent has a response. If you have gas in hand, easily turn that into a regular, so you have responses for your opponent's hand traps, so you can push your combo through. It is the way of the combo deck, but that is the way we kind of have to work towards, and I think Clockwork Knight does a whole lot of good to help with that. Which yeah, great card, great card. I was very, very wrong. Second effect also does come in handy once or twice. I'm definitely more often just making this guy as a machine, or to, you know, cycle between Clockwork Knights, but I would be lying if I didn't say that, like, I have, you know, used this effect to, you know, summon back Remotens, make a Power to Dragon with an Earphone, which really does, you know, help in a bit more niche situations. I think if you want to, like, set this guy up a bit more with, like, Cont Spells, you can try for that, but I do not think you want to be digging out, you know, the gadget boxes for that yet. I think just cycling between Clockwork Knights, or, you know, just being a Link 1 machine, because Link 1s are cool. But that's a different topic for another day. You saw in one of the games the Silhouette Rabbit, which is chilling down in the side at the moment. Mainly something I cut because there was just like a whole lot of stuff in this deck that you did not want to be drawing. And in the end, I decided to shave that. I'm probably going to save that for another deck. Or, you know, in 2 weeks when I miss the little guy, I'm probably going to put him back in. But I think that this list is probably going to be what I will be playing post Supreme Darkness, because it feels good, it looks good, and it runs good. And I think Clockwork Knight is in part to thank for that. But yeah, with all that being said, what are your thoughts? I'm passing the ball back to you guys, as I usually do, like having your guys' input on these videos, and it's also a lot more helpful because if this, you know, discussion type content is of course a bit more educational, and you know, if the comments are full with, you know, people sharing their expertise, everyone gets more out of it. So if you have tips and tricks for the Clockwork Knight, do share those in the comments. I would be happy to read some more, because I think you guys probably have been playing with this card for a bit longer than I have by now, because I have not been a believer, but yeah, I am now. So yeah, with all that out of the way, I'll be thanking you very much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys again next time. But until then, goodbye.